Hello and welcome to the State of the Fleet Industry, a weekly video series produced by Automotive Fleet magazine and which is sponsored by Enterprise Fleet Management. I'm Mike Antich, editor of Automotive Fleet, and today I'd like to examine what's occurring in the fleet industry for the week of April 19th, 2021. I'd like to start this week's presentation by stating the obvious. Fuel prices are increasing. So check out this photo I took over the weekend in downtown Los Angeles. The price for unleaded gasoline at this location is approaching $5 a gallon. And yes, I know California has some of the highest gasoline prices in the country, but as a lifelong Californian, I never remember seeing gasoline prices this high. And as we all know, higher fuel prices aren't restricted just to California. We're witnessing higher fuel prices all around the country. And it's the current supply and demand imbalance that's what's driving today's fuel prices. So supply and demand drives all commodity prices, and oil is just another commodity. Consumer demand for fuel continues to be strong, as we witnessed recently with the increased driving miles during the Easter holiday extended weekend. And this increased demand is anticipated to continue to remain strong through the upcoming Memorial Day holiday, as it has historically. These aren't new trends, they're historical norms, but we are starting these historical norms at much higher prices. And my question is whether the gasoline prices this summer in California will ultimately break a new psychological threshold with prices north of $5 a gallon. And if it does, for how long will it remain at this level? So while everyone agrees that fuel prices are increasing, the question is, by how much will they increase? When you read the short-term forecast from the U.S. Energy Administration, it expects that during the summer driving season, which it defines as the period from April to September, regular gasoline retail prices nationwide will average $2.78 per gallon. So this is a dramatic increase from the nationwide average of $2.07 per gallon that we experienced last summer. So this will be a 71 cents per gallon increase is the anticipation during this summer driving period. And as more of the national economy continues to reopen, I personally anticipate that there's going to be even further increases in overall miles driven, which will put even more upward pressure on retail prices. So these are challenging times for fleet managers. And if I had to characterize calendar years 2020 and 2021 with a single word, I would say disruption. Disruption has really been the hallmark of the fleet industry for the past 2 years. And one new disruption during the 2021 calendar year continues to be the ongoing microprocessor shortage, which doesn't seem like it's going to be resolved anytime soon. It seems that each week someone is pushing out the date to when the microprocessor supply will ultimately be rectified. And namely, that means when microchip supplies are going to reach equilibrium with buyer demand. And today there is no equilibrium. Demand far exceeds supply. In fact, I heard one person recently say that we're not experiencing a microprocessor shortage. Rather, he called it a microprocessor drought. Product is simply not available when you need it. And a key reason why the microprocessor supply disruption will last longer than anticipated is because of the long lead times needed to source and produce microchips. Producing microchips is, to say again the obvious, is a complicated business. For example, lead times have increased as much as 10 weeks for some types of automotive microprocessors. And this was all put into perspective for me recently when I read an interview with Intel, the country's largest semiconductor manufacturer. And Intel, to its credit, has committed to opening its factory network to manufacture chips specific to the automotive industry. But it's going to take 6 to 9 months before the first chips are produced. So let me repeat that to allow it to sink in. It's going to take 6 to 9 months before we see first relief from chips produced by Intel, and this will only represent a fraction of the microchips needed by the automotive industry. And if you wanted to build a new chip factory to produce microprocessors, it's going to take on average 3 to 4 years to construct. So the microchip shortage doesn't seem to be an issue that really lends itself to a short-term fix. Plus, in the next several months, demand for microprocessors will even further increase as the consumer electronics industry starts to gear up for the holiday season. In fact, production will soon be starting for those consumer electronic products that are going to be sold between this coming Black Friday and the first week of January 2022. And if these predictions are right, the chip shortage is going to last for the balance of calendar year 2021. So this means we should really be bracing ourselves for ongoing production constraints throughout the first quarter of the 2022 model year, namely October through December of this year. And on top of all of this, there are new COVID outbreaks occurring in Michigan, which is threatening to slow production at Michigan-based assembly plants as more workers contract the virus and have to quarantine. But the disruption doesn't stop here. The latest concern is about future supply constraints with the availability of rubber. The supply of rubber has tightened due to the increased demand for rubber-related products that has occurred during the pandemic. So for example, the demand for rubber gloves for instance, during the pandemic has skyrocketed. Plus, it's been reported in the business press that the Chinese government has been stockpiling rubber to avoid supply constraints for its own industries, which may create constraints for other industries outside of China. The concern is not so much about a rubber shortage, but longer lead times, which are very disruptive to supply chains that are built on just-in-time deliveries that rely on lean inventories. So we've seen again and again, just-in-time deliveries continue to be the Achilles heel that is vulnerable to any type of supply constraint and longer lead time. So far, there hasn't been a rubber shortage, but if you read the tire and rubber trade magazines, there is definitely apprehension about the potential for supply constraints and longer lead times. And nowadays, it seems that there's one potential disruption after another that threatens new vehicle production and availability. But as they say, this too shall pass. These are temporary disruptions that are ultimately going to be worked out in the marketplace. The key question is, how long is it going to take to work this out? But there does continue to be one facet of the fleet industry and the automotive industry in general that is consistently producing good news, and that is the used vehicle resale market. Used vehicle inventory in both the wholesale and retail used vehicle markets continues to be in short supply. And as a result, resale prices are continuing to experience week over week increases. So for example, resale prices for subcompact and compact cars are strong today due to the tax returns and government stimulus monies, as these types of vehicles appeal to this buying segment. Plus, trucks and vans continue to be very hot in both the new and used vehicle market, and this doesn't appear to be abating anytime soon. And with depreciation being fleet's largest expense, the ongoing strength in the used vehicle market continues to be good news for fleet managers and their fleet budgets. So on that positive note, I'd like to conclude my State of the Fleet Industry presentation for the week of April 19th, 2021, and I'd like to thank you for listening.